What if trauma isn't the end of the story? What if it's not even the story itself? What if the most powerful shift we can make isn't just becoming trauma informed, but actually story informed? Hey friends, I'm Chris Hoff, and on this channel we explore healing, not as a return to normal, but as a return to narrative, your narrative. Today we are wandering into the space between trauma and healing, between wounds and wisdom. A lot has been said about trauma lately, and rightfully so, but I want to invite you to consider what might change if we shifted our focus from what happened to what is becoming. Stick around, and we'll explore three soulful, grounded practices for reshaping your relationship to wounds, not by fixing yourself, but by becoming the author of your life again. So, a little history. Trauma informed care asked a revolutionary question: what happened to you? It moved us away from blame and compassion, but even this question can sometimes feel like it stops time, like pins us in place. In narrative practice, we ask something different. What are the stories being told about what happened to you? Who authored them? What possibilities have been edited out? When we become story informed, we begin to see ourselves not only as people who experienced harm, but as people with the capacity to reinterpret, retell, and reimagine. It's not a denial of the past, it's a reclaiming of authorship. Sometimes trauma becomes the story, it becomes the room we live in, the lens we look through, the name we give ourselves. I'm broken because of what happened. I can't trust anyone. This ruined me. These are honest expressions. They need space, but they don't need to be final. In narrative work, we ask, who benefits from this story staying central? What values of yours were betrayed in that moment? What does that say about who you are and what is important to you? Stories, when unexamined, can become cages, but stories, when explored, can also become keys to liberation. Let me be clear, this isn't about finding the silver linings or telling ourselves to move on. It's about movement, personal agency, within the story, through the story, beyond the fixed meanings we may have inherited. Your trauma is not your personality. Your wound is not your whole biography. You were allowed to tell more than one story. For example, that relationship hurt me deeply. It also revealed a capacity for tenderness I didn't know I had. It taught me the edges of my no and the shape of my yes. These aren't mutually exclusive. They're layers, and we get to choose which ones to foreground and which ones to revise and which ones still need time to unfold. Here are three invitations, practices you can explore not as prescriptions, but as possible paths. First, narrative inventory. Write down the stories you tell yourself about painful experience. Then ask, whose voice is this? Is this the whole story? What do I wish someone had witnessed or asked at that time? Two, wisdom discovery. Instead of just tracking what went wrong, ask, what did I come to value because of this? What capacities emerged? Who have I become in the aftermath? Not to glorify suffering, but to notice the resistances and resourcefulness that arose in its wake. And three, future authoring. Ask not just what happened, but maybe ask, who am I becoming now? What kind of story wants to be lived through me? How might my healing ripple outward into relationship, into community? We can't reauthor alone. We need spaces, therapeutic, spiritual, artistic, communal, where stories can be spoken out loud and heard generously. This might look like narrative therapy rooted in collaboration, circles where we share our experience without judgment, spaces where creativity and grief can coexist, and mentors who help us remember what we forgot about ourselves. When you speak a new story, you don't just change your inner world, you make space for others to do the same. To be trauma informed is to understand what breaks people. To be story informed is to understand how people mend. You are not just a survivor of your past. You are a storyteller in the making, and every day you wake up is another page. If this stirred something in you, share your reflections in the comments, maybe a line from your old story that no longer fits or a glimpse of a new one emerging. If you want more on narrative practice and the poetry of becoming, hit like and subscribe. Next week, we'll explore what it means to reauthor relationships, not just with others, but with yourself. Thanks. Peace.